Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock, Jeff Upson with you here as we'll recap the section championships from this past weekend and get you set for the WPIAL championships in AAA. Not a lot to talk about in AA since we kind of recapped everything and set the stage for the Southwest Regional. AA had the weekend off. But one thing we got to mention, Jeff, look at our nice shirts from Burgestown. Got to thank Joey Vigilati for hooking us up.
Yeah, man. I mean, he really hooked us up. We got nice shirts. We got opposite shirts, so that way we're not clashing and twinning. So yeah, shout out Birdstown. I love the Blue Devils, and yeah, real happy about it.
Absolutely, and obviously they're set for this coming weekend in AA. We'll at least get you some times later on in the show, but let's dive right into AAA, Jeff, as the section tournament from this past weekend. We're just going to kind of talk about all four sections at the same time, and then I'll set the stage for the WPIAL tournament. So Section 1, your champion at 106 pounds was Nico Fanella of Indiana. He had a 6-3 win over Tyler Capusta of Franklin Regional in that final. Luke Willishaw of Latrobe, winner of Section 2. Connor Smith of Seneca Valley, winner of Section 3. And Tanner Mazinko of Canon-McMillan, the winner of Section 4. Before we dive into the WPIAL bracket, Jeff, what are your thoughts on the section tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but there wasn't a ton of surprises throughout the sections. I mean, everything kind of went chalk. I mean, there was a few things that jumped out, a few surprises, but for the most part, I wasn't really too surprised by many of the results. So 106 was kind of just like that, and especially when they came out with the seeds. Not surprised at all to see how they came out with the seeds with Wilshell at the top, Vanilla at the bottom. I think you could switch either one of them, and it wouldn't make much of a difference. But I do like separating Wilshell and Capusta. They have wrestled before, even though Fanella and Capusta just wrestled this past weekend. I like where the brackets laid out. I think Connor Smith is solid 4 there. Overall 106. I mean, Fanella, that's the thing. He's from Indiana. I know him pretty well just from him being on our team and watching him kind of coming up through the junior high ranks. He's very good. He just hasn't quite been. He doesn't have the test, that some of these other wrestlers have had. So that's kind of the one ding on him, and it's not really his fault, but he just hasn't seen some of the top quality guys. So him beating Capusto last weekend, obviously a good step in that right direction. And Wilshell being at the top, I mean, his 4 losses are all very quality losses, including to the top-ranked guy, Nathan Desmond. So no shame there. Overall, 106 is deep. I like this weight class a lot. There's going to be a lot of good first-round matches. Giovanni Shapani, Rylan Campbell right off the bat, Tanner Mazanko, Anna Malovich from Butler. And Anna, she's the first female wrestler to qualify for the AAA WPIAL tournament. So that's kind of incredible in itself. Overall, though, a lot of things to get excited about at 106.
And she does it without being that number 5. I didn't know if you want me to talk about the 5th place finishers as well, Jeff. We had extensive talk about it last week, but kidding aside, you look at this weight class, you mentioned it. I feel like there is a pretty clear top 4. It's deeper, like you mentioned, all those guys, Campbell, Chopani, they're 8 and 9 seeds respectively. Solid wrestlers. You got the Tanner Mazinko, Casey Walker, TJ Allison. But to me, I feel like there's a little separation between the top 4 and the rest of the group. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I would agree to a certain extent. TJ Allison from Trinity, freshman, down at 106. He was second out of Section 4. I would say he's definitely in the mix. Walker has had a good season. Casey Walker from North Allegheny. He's had some up and down results, and but a really pretty loaded schedule that North Allegheny did have. Overall, though, there's not, like you said, there's not a whole lot of surprises with the top 4, even 5, 6 seeds. So I think the committee did a great job on this. And again, I think you could have switched Wilshell and Fennell, and I still would have thought that was fair. I kind of like having Capusta and Wilshell separated. So maybe that's my own personal feelings into that, but I'm okay with where the brackets are at.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And going back to TJ Allison, Tanner Mazinko had a convincing win against him on Saturday. So Mazinko a solid number 5, and Allison, I think right there, like you said, 6 with Walker 7. So I think it's seated just the way it should be, and we'll see how it all plays out. 113 pounds, Carter Putt of Indiana was your champion at Section 1. Evan Petrovich of Connellsville, your champ in Section 2. Tyler Chappell of Seneca Valley, your champ in Section 3. And Darius McMillan, your champ from Peters Township in Section 4. Not a lot of surprises here. I guess the one big thing is South Fayette's Luke Dunlap unable to wrestle because he missed weight. He was still a pound over when he weighed in. And the struggle he had was he actually had to sit out for a week due to COVID exposure. About, I think Coach Shostard mentioned like 2 or 3 weeks prior to the postseason. And you figure when you're trying to cut that much weight to get down to 113, a weight class he had never competed in to that point, it's going to be very difficult to do when you miss a week of practice.
Oh, I mean, absolutely it is. And I noticed that he wasn't in the lineup. And, he's a guy who I think probably could have made some noise here for South Fayette. You look at what he did at 120 pounds. He has a win over Brady Joling. He has a win over Darius McMillan, 5-2. That was early in the season here. He lost to Halp. He lost to Kiernan. He's had success, but we saw it at 120. So him trying to get down to 113, we knew it was probably going to be tough, but it is a loss for the depth here at 113 because 13 is I'm not saying it's wide open because you have Tyler Chappell, but outside of Tyler Chappell, I think it's pretty wide open. Darius McMillan is a good wrestler, no doubt, but we haven't quite seen him against some of the top guys, right? And we've seen Chappell a whole heck of a lot against some of the top guys, not only in the WPIAL but the state. Joling and Damai, they've gone back and forth. A lot of these wrestlers have beaten each other up. They have wins against each other. They have losses against each other. At the end of the day, McMillan, I think, was the right choice for that second seed. And I think you put Joling and Damai in there, and it's, again, you're not going to really – I don't think you're really splitting atoms over where you're going to put either one of them because they both have, good wins. And, of course, we have the most recent win being Brady Joling over Damai. So it's just not – it's not a deep weight class. It's a wide open weight class, in my opinion, outside of Chappell.
You mean Damai just really recently beating Joling in the section semis. But, McMillan, to me, he had an 11-6 win over Damai. And at one point, Damai, I can't remember if he got a takedown or reversal, but honestly, McMillan never lost his, composure. He seemed cool, calm for a guy who, is coming into this, like you said, really untested, 26-2. He's a freshman. Sometimes you get, give up a couple of points to a junior like Damai, and all of a sudden you could kind of unravel a bit. But he was very, cool the whole time in his matchup, and I like him a lot. I think I see him in the finals against Chappell. I think he's going to be, right there in that mix. I think that 3-4 is going to be what's in question. You got, like you said, Damai and Joling who battled back and forth. I think, they at least get one, if not both of the spots. But what's Evan Petrovich do? What's Ramil Islamov of Baldwin? He's got to be in that mix as well. Carter Putt, he's a freshman from Indiana, just kind of like, his teammate Finello, who we don't see a lot of. Can he get into that mix? So I think that 3-4 spot's going to be interesting here at 113, but I see Chappell and McMillan 1-2.
Yeah, I would agree with that with Chappell and McMillan. McMillan's been a steady horse, and you're right. He's just progressively gotten better as the season's going on. You can tell just by the way he wrestles, he's more comfortable, and he's just, like you said, he just looks kind of savvy and a little bit more comfortable than a lot of freshmen do at this stage in their careers. And I do apologize if I said Joling and Damai. Look, those two have gone back and forth. Damai won the first two, Joling won the third, then Damai won the next one. So it's hard to keep track of those guys. I can tell you just from doing rankings, it's like, wait, all right, who won that last one? Head-to-head results are always like, man, they this guy beat that person. But you're right. When you look at the rest of the field, it's again, that third and fourth, as you mentioned, is really wide open. There's a variety of people that I could see sneaking through and getting in there, and Evan Petrovic is one of those guys. He's, after taking that loss to Leo Joseph in the sectional team tournament, he has been pretty solid throughout, and of course he won the section title, but he's on that same side as Tyler Chappell. So, he's going to necessarily, if he gets out, he'll see Brady Joling. I think that's a good match. I think it's a match he can win. Joling's had some great success this year, but other times you're just, a little bit inconsistent, I guess you would say. Throughout, this junior campaign, he's had a couple big wins. And I would say, looking at where the brackets fall, Carter Putt, he has Leo Joseph the first round, so you win a section and you're rewarded with Leo Joseph, which no fault to him, but that's a pretty damn tough first round matchup, in my opinion, for a section champion. But again, Carter Putt, Indiana, we haven't seen a whole lot of him.
And he's gonna have to do a lot. You mentioned Joseph. If he wins that match, obviously he gets Chappell. Drops the loss to Chappell, he's gonna have the loser of Petrovic and Joling, and then he's gonna have the loser of that semifinal, which could be McMillan, Damai, Islamov. So he's gonna have to win 3 big matches in order to be able to get into that top 4. So if he gets there, if he gets all 3 of those wins, he's definitely earned it for sure. One thing I want to mention too, really quick, Jeff, as we dive into this, the WPIAL committee did decide they will wrestle a 5th and 6th place match in every one of these. In the event there is an injury or COVID issue, they know who that 5th place guy is.
That's a really smart idea, and I'm really surprised it took this long for that to happen. Every other region in the state does it. When they're qualifying 4, they wrestle out to 6. I was just in the South Central Regional this past weekend, and you didn't see, I think there was 1 forfeit in the 5th and 6th place match. That was it. Which to me is kind of surprising, because oftentimes you see that where a lot of guys, especially if they're seniors, like, I'm not even going out and wrestling it. But literally, I would say 12 out of 13 all wrestled, and they wrestled hard, and they were in that in those matches. So I think that's the right thing to do, especially out here where it's, you have the best wrestling in the state. When you look at 113, you also mentioned Islamov. He did forfeit in the finals there to Petrovic. So, he was the top seed. He got to the final. So I'm curious to know if he's healthy and good to go, because if he is, he's another one to keep an eye on, because he has a good side of that bracket. He wins and gets Damai. He could catch Damai and then, be head to head with McMillan potentially. So another one to look at, especially if he's healthy and good to go.
120 pounds, Troy Homan of Penn Trafford is your champion. Vinny Kilkeary of Latrobe wins Section 2. Dominic Ferrero of Pine Richland wins Section 3. And Jacob Haupt of Canon-McMillan wins Section 4 with a 1-0 decision over Mason Kernan of Bethel Park, giving Kernan his first loss of the season. Not much surprises here either in the section side, Jeff. And as far as the WPIAL goes, Kilkeary 1, Homan 2, Haupt 3, Kernan 4. You could maybe make an argument about Dominic Ferrero, but outside of that, I don't think there's much surprise here with the top 4.
Yeah, I don't think you can make an argument for anything outside of this 4. These are the 4 guys that should be seated where they're at. So you can't convince me that it should be anything other than Kilkeary 1 and Homan 2, with Haupt and Kiernan being 3 and 4. So Kiernan up to this point was undefeated, right? He had a tough match against Jacob Haupt, who we know is up at 120. Dom Ferrero has had a good season. He's had some good results, no doubt, winning the section title here. But I think Haupt, with that 1-0 decision over Kiernan, solidifies his spot there. And you look at the rest of the field here. It's outside of those big 4. You got Jacob Layton as well in the top. He's likely to come out and get another, this is his 6th match with Vinny Kilkeary this season alone. Kiernan's the guy that I really want to see. He had a good Super 32. He's been wrestling pretty hard and been wrestling up. He has a win over Tyler Chappell. Again, losing to Haupt 1-0, I don't think sets him back. I still think he makes it out to the semifinals. Luke Passarelli, those Norwin guys, Kyle Martin has continued to build that program up and get his guys to a different level. We've seen it just in a short period of time, the transformation that some of them have been making. But outside of them, I don't see a whole lot of threats. I just don't see some guys that are like, man, I would watch out for him, because we've kind of, outside of those guys, I mean, Dom Ferrero is right in the mix, no doubt. I think he's right there, but outside of those top 4 or 5 seeds, I don't see much of a surprises that are lurking.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, you look at the 5 through 8, I think are good wrestlers, like you mentioned, Pasquarelli, Leighton, Ferraro, James Anderson, Sal Fayette's had a good season as well. But to me, I think obviously I think it's going to be Kilkerry in the final, and obviously I like Homan as well in that final as well. And I like Haupt to obviously make it too. So Kernan's maybe the only spot that's potentially where one of those guys can slide in, but it's gonna be tough. I mean, I think there's a pretty clear top 3 at 120, and if not top 4, because Kernan wrestled Haupt tough. He couldn't get out from underneath. That's one area I think Kernan's struggled a little bit is on bottom, but he's sound on his feet, sound on top, and he's gonna be tough to beat. So I agree with you. I think 120's pretty clear as far as where you see those top guys.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I mean, Haupt and Kiernan, that was a 1-point match, right? So I mean that can change, I think, pretty easily, right? But Ferrero is that guy that I'm looking at to say, okay, can you come up with a big win? I'm not saying Jacob Leighton can't or Luke Passarelli can't. Like, I just think Dom Ferrero is one of those guys that could upset those 4, and it would probably have to be Haupt or Kiernan. I agree with you. I think we're going to have Vinny Kilkerry versus Troy Homan Chapter 12 just in the last 2 years. So I don't see anything going crazy there. The question that I think a lot of people have is, can Haupt take out Homan? Haupt being the guy who was dissenting down to 13, and Homan a guy who's been up at as high as 26. Is there going to be a weight advantage, a strength advantage? But the question is, can Haupt beat Homan to get into the finals against Kilkerry? I don't know. I certainly think he can. I mean, I've seen Jacob Haupt make huge jumps in the last year, so I definitely don't doubt it. I just kind of, it's hard to bet against a guy like Troy Homan and what he was able to do at Powerade, and kind of continued throughout this season. So he's going to NC State for a reason, right? He's a pretty solid horse.
Yeah, there's been so much improvement. I mean, like we had him on the show, after the Powerade championship he won, and there's so much there that I don't see that Haupt can get it done. But hey, we'll see. That's why they wrestle the matches. But I agree with you. I think it's Kilkerry and Homan in the final once again. 126 pounds. Your your section champs: Hayden Coy of Penn Trafford in Section 1, Maddox Shaw of Thomas Jefferson in Section 2. He beat Ethan Lieben of Hempfield 1-0. Dylan Coy of North Allegheny, he won 8-4 over Anthony Ferraro of Pine Richland, and Xander Fatoros of Waynesburg wins Section 4, 5-3 winner over Andrew Binney of Canon-McMillan. The one surprise here that this is probably what caught my attention the most out of the 4 section tournaments, Jeff, was Antonio Walker of Plum not advancing to the WPIAL tournament. He dropped a tough 2-1 decision to Hayden Coy of Penn Trafford, who ended up winning the title. Then he dropped it in the consolations, a 2-0 decision to Aiden Burford of Highlands, and decided to forfeit to Sam Jacobs of Armstrong for 5th place. And, a guy who's had a lot of success, including just a year ago as a state qualifier, to not be here in the WPIAL tournament, just shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised by that too as well. Walker was a guy who last year was in the mix at 106 for a state medal. Loses a tough match to Coy and then loses to Burford, which, I mean, Aiden Burford's, him and Braden White are 2 of the best freshmen in the WPIAL. So I wasn't necessarily surprised by that, but I was surprised that Burford got pinned by Josh Alexander from Fox Chapel, then comes back and goes all the way back for third, including then a win over Alexander. So I wasn't expecting to see Burford and Walker to meet in the Conti semifinals. So, should he have won that, maybe things would have been a little bit different. But yeah, you're right. That was a little surprising for sure, especially that he didn't wrestle in that 5th place match. Not sure necessarily what's going on there. The story at 126 is, can Maddox Shaw continue to do what he did at Powerade, right? And this is the big question mark. Is, Powerade was one tournament, but what can you do now that we're a few months removed from that? I think that match with Ethan Lieben was a good test for him, because Lieben is a guy who, when he's on, and clearly he was right there in that match. It was an ultimate tiebreaker match that could have went either way. But you had Dylan Coy and Anthony Ferraro. They battled again for the 15th time, same with Xander Fatoris and Andrew Binney, going head-to-head for a number of times. I think you look at the seeds, and I have no issues with any of the seeds. I think they're 100% correct with Shaw as 1. Lieben as 2, I'm not mad at it, because he was right there with Maddox Shaw. But, Dylan Coy, it was a tied match when he lost to Maddox Shaw, when he was pinned by him.
Scoreless match too.
Yes, it was scoreless, right? And he pinned him at the end of the second period, I believe it was. So defensively. So you look at where Maddox Shaw is now as compared to where he was at Powerade. He's got a couple more wins, and he actually has a loss, right? He lost to Vinny Citrano when he was up at 132. So I think that's a good thing for him coming into this, his first WPIAL championship. Ferraro lost to Coy earlier this year as well. So he lost to Coy twice already. He has a win over Lieben. He beat Lieben 1-0. So, there's maybe a question of like, okay, should Coy be the second, and then Lieben, and then Ferraro? I mean, you can argue that because they've all kind of had wins over each other. But at the end of the day, I don't think the committee's wrong in where they seeded the top 4 here. I love it. I hope we see a Maddox Shaw have a rematch with Dylan Coy. I'm not saying I want to see that, but it would be a good match again. I think Coy's peaking at the right time. I think he's had he's had some battles throughout the season, but I think he's on the right track.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I like the fact you got Lieben and Coy there on the bottom. Let those two battle it out, see which one comes out on top to advance into the final and take on Maddox Shaw, provided he can get there. I guess the question is, you mentioned Anthony Ferraro too at number 4. Can any of the other guys get into the mix? You have the answer is yes, but the question is who could do it? Xander Fatoris, he's wrestling well right now.
Yeah,
he beat out Joe Simone to get that spot at 126 when Simone wasn't able to get down to 120. Andrew Binney, obviously he didn't get the opportunity to get down to 120. Can he, obviously, but a guy who was a qualifier last year as well. So Hayden Coy obviously just coming off a strong Section 1 performance where, he beat, the guys that he needed to beat, right? He beats Walker, beats Klingensmith. So he won probably one of the tougher sections out of the 4, right? As far as the section tournament goes, that was a deep weight class in Section 1 at 126. So how can it go? Can some of these other guys get into the mix and grab maybe that 4th spot? Because to me, I think it's definitely Shaw, Coy, and Lieben as the 1, 2, 3. But who grabs that 4th?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that Ferraro is clearly the 4th, in my opinion. You just look at his results this year. He has that win over Lieben. He's 32-4, and you look at his 4 losses. One was to Maddox Shaw by fall. One was an out of state. He lost to Dylan Coy 4-0, and he beat Ethan Lieben 1-0 before losing to Coy again. So 2 losses to Coy, close matches, and a win over Lieben. I would say he's certainly in the mix there. Can he beat Maddox Shaw? Can he even get past Xander Fatoris? I don't know. Fatoris is wrestling really well right now. At Powerade, I was not impressed by Xander. He just didn't look like himself. He looked a little undersized. And now for the last month or so, I'd say Xander has looked really good. He looked like the guy that we saw for the first time when he moved from Arizona to Pennsylvania. I thought, man, this guy's going to be special. I'm starting to see that more. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Fatoris, making it out to the semifinals with him and Ferraro going head to head. So, and there's some really good first round matches. Klingensmith versus Ruggieri from Collinsville. I like that first round matchup. Coy is on he should win and then get Dylan Coy. So we have a battle of the Coys. Benny and Burford first round matchup. I like that, sophomore versus freshman. But overall, I think Lieben and Coy will be on the bottom half. I see that happening. And on the top half, I think we'll see a Maddox Shaw and Anthony Ferraro match with Xander Fatoris likely, in that mix as well. So 26 is a deep weight class, Greg. There's no doubt about it. And I think when we look at the state, all the 4 finishers here from the WPIAL can all push for a top 8 finish, no doubt, on the state level.
132 pounds, Vinny Citrano, a plum, your champ in Section 1. Chad Ozias of Collinsville, your champ in Section 2. Kyvon Grace of Moon, your champ in Section 3. Mac Church of Waynesburg, your champ in Section 4. As far as seeds go in the WPIAL, Mac Church obviously sitting at the top. Citrano, a plum, number 2. Ozias of Collinsville, number 3. I think that's solid spots. Kyvon Grace 4, Blake Reener of Trinity 5. You could probably flip-flop those two, but doesn't really matter which way it is, whether it's 4 or whether it's 5. But I think you have the top 5 right here at 132.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Obviously, Mac Church is a guy you're going to want to have as your top seed. He's a returning state champion, no doubt about that. The question was, Vinny Citrano and him coming in undefeated with a win over Maddox Shaw. Chad Ozias, being that he's a returning state medalist, you're thinking, okay, is he going to have more, of a precedence over Citrano? I like where they're at because I think that allows Citrano, like you said, 3 and 4, or excuse me, 2 and 3 going at it in the semifinals, which is great. But in order to get there, there's going to be a lot of landmines there. You have Chad Ozias wrestling potentially Eli Carr, who I think has wrestled really well. That would be a sectional finals rematch. Bodie Marlowe from Thomas Jefferson has Nathan Monapart from North Allegheny right out of the gate. That's, to me, one of the best first-round matchups in the entire tournament, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Vinny Citrano, this is it, man. Like, this is your last go. This is your last chance to prove to yourself that all the hard work you've been doing for the last most of your life is paying off. And we had him on the show, and he talked about that confidence and that mental edge and what he's trying to work through. So I'm excited to see Vinny Citrano because to this point he has not been able to burst through and bust through. We've seen him beat a lot of tough guys, but we haven't seen him burst through yet. So this is the time to show that. And of course, Mac Church been at the top. They take 4. I would fully expect him to be in the mix to be in that finals.
Well, I would hope so because I think Mac Church is going to win it all. But I'm not sure if you mean Reener or Grace. But yeah, you look at 132 pounds, as you mentioned, Bodie Marlowe. I thought he's been having a great season as a freshman, coming down to 132. I think, he battled tough against Eli Carr, dropped that 5-3 decision. Maybe, I was looking at him like, maybe he's a little underseeded, but I'm not really sure who you put him in front of. I mean, perhaps you could put him in front of, Nick Jones, Braden White. But, to me, I think he'd probably prefer where he's at, take on Nathan Monapart and have a chance to be on the bottom half as opposed to being on top with Mac Church. And
yeah, I would agree with that, and I would agree with where Kyvon, Grace is as well. I think you give him a shot to go head to head with a Blake Reener from Trinity, who's had a good season thus far after a really good freshman year. Grace is a senior who's, again, like Citrano, has been knocking on the door, just hasn't broken through yet. So give him a shot to battle it out and make a stand against Mac Church. And again, make it to the semifinals is a great. That's a much easier path than losing in the first round of quarterfinals, right? So I have no problems with the seeds here, and really I think it leaves the door open for some of these other guys like a Braden White, like a Blake Rayner, to try to push through, or Nathan Montepart, try to earn a big win, to find themselves in the top 4.
Yeah, Grace beating Montepart 3-1 in the Section 3 final to earn that seed. Yeah, this one's going to be interesting for sure to see who comes out with that 4. I like the top 3. Like I said, Church, Citrano, Azias, but from there, I mean, Grace, Reener. I think Bodie Marlowe could get hot at the right time. Eli Carr's wrestling really well. Montepart's had some highlight matches, so this number 4 spot to me is very intriguing at 132. 138 pounds, your section champs in Section 1. It was Nathan Stone of Franklin Regional. Section 2 is Briar Priest of Hempfield. Section 3, it was Dominic Vivarito of Butler. Sorry about that. And Colton Stone King of Waynesburg, your Section 4 champ. Briar Priest gets the top seed. Lonzie Vilma of Connellsville gets the number 2, all in part to a win over Colton Stone King of Waynesburg, who gets number 3, and Robert Allison of Trinity gets number 4.
Yeah, and Greg, no surprises here. You obviously have the state champion Briar Priest at the top. He has that win over Velma, who has 2 wins over Stone King, right? He has 2 wins over the returning state medalist George Mason recruit. So Lonzie's the guy who, I've been high on him for a while, since he was coming up through the junior high ranks. He wrestled in the Surge. Got to see him really against some high school competition. So fully expect him and Stone King to do battle for a 3rd time in the semifinals here, with a chance to go on to the finals against Briar Priest. I don't see those 3. I don't see anyone beating them. I think those 3 are going to make it to the state tournament in one fashion or another. Robbie Allison is wrestling well. Only 12-3, so not as many matches under his belt this year than he had last year. But those Trinity guys are well coached, right? They have a strong tradition of doing big things in the postseason. The question is, can a guy like Cole Doppelhauer make some noise and upset some folks? Robbie Allison, we know, is capable of. What about Nathan Stone? Nathan Stone's been up and down, man. He's at times looked like, hey, I think he could be the 4th guy here. But other times you're like, how did he lose that match? So he had a good section tournament, avenging a loss to Logan Bechtold of Kiski to win the section title. I like where he's at in the bracket, because you give him a shot against the 4th seed and Robbie Allison. Wouldn't be surprised to see Stone win that match. If he's hot at the right time, I think anything's possible. But outside of those top 3, I really don't see those 3 not making it to the state tournament. It's just that 4th, like you said, at 126. Who is that 4th going to be coming out of the WPIAL?
Yeah, and like I mentioned, 132 as well. It's that 4th place guys, the question mark. I think the top 3 are in place. You hit it on the head. 138, top 3 are right there in place. That Colton Stone King Lonzie Vilma match will be a very exciting one in the semifinals. I'll tell you what, Robert Allison, he had a big shoulder brace on. Obviously, he's been battling injury. He's only wrestled 15 matches all year. He struggled a little bit in the semifinal match. He was actually trailing Bryson Bench of Bethel Park 7-3 in the middle of the second period. He ended up getting an escape in the second, and then an escape and a takedown to tie the match at 7 in the third period, and then had to go to overtime to beat him. Bryson Bench isn't even in the WPIAL tournament.
Right,
Jeff.
he falls to
He's finishing
6th.
6th place.
Right.
So he dropped a pair of matches in the consolation. He's a good wrestler. Don't get me wrong. I mean, 138 was deep in Section 4, but Allison did battle Stone King. I thought he was a little banged up after wrestling Bench, and I thought, okay, he may not wrestle against Stone King, but he did, and he definitely hung tough in that matchup. But I think it's just going to depend, how his health is, how his shoulder is, how it's going to be able to hold up through the entire WPIAL tournament. Because if he's not quite 100%, then guys like you said, Nate Stone, Cole Doppelhauer, I could see those guys knocking him off. Logan Bechtold, which to me, I think Logan Bechtold may have gotten a little underseeded in this one. Nothing against like a Chris Sabroni, but Bechtold may be a little bit underseeded. With that said, though, that 4th spot is really wide open.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And you look at the section champ Vivarito from Butler. He has a loss to Brony from Peters Township 10-7 this year. You know, I'm not saying he was. I think he's fine where he's at. But again, health. You know, who's healthy, who's not. That Nate Stone Robbie Allison match. You know, that may be a time for Stone to smell blood in the water and say, hey, I can win this match. I can get out to the semifinals. And do battle with Briar Priest. So, again, much like we said before, these top three are just really solid. It's that fourth spot that's really where the excitement is, in my opinion.
145 pounds, Finn Sullivan of Franklin Regional, your champion. Lucas Capusta of Hempfield, your champion, Section 2. Ty Waters of West Allegheny, your champion, Section 3, a 6-1 over Levi Donnell of Butler in the final. And Nate Jones of Waynesburg, your champion, out of Section 4. Top 4 seeds here: Ty Waters of West Allegheny, Finn Solomon of Franklin Regional. They seem to be on a collision course for one another. They had an exciting matchup earlier in the season. Lucas Capusta of Hempfield, number 3. Levi Donnell of Butler, number 4. No argument here where the top 4 are. And to me, I'm not sure. There's some good wrestlers in here, right? Nate Jones, Drake Burford. But to me, there's a pretty clear top 4 here, 145.
I don't think it gets much more clear than these top 4, to be honest with you, Greg. I mean, clearly Waters and Solomon are on a collision course for the third meeting of the season. Solomon took the first one 3-0 at Eastern Area, but then Waters had that huge win in the quarterfinals of Powerade, 11-4. That was a hell of a match, and I'd love to see that one again. I do think it's likely going to happen. The question I have is Ty Waters is how battle ready is he, because he hadn't been in the lineup for a few weeks. Solomon has stayed in and battled, so I expect these two to come out on top. Donnell is good, right? But he just lost to Waters. He hasn't beaten Waters before. Capusta is a guy who I think is peaking at the right time. He wrestled really well at the Powerade, has had some success this year, whereas the last 2 years he's kind of had some ups and downs. I think he's been a lot more consistent this year. Drake Burford is another one who I think as a senior he's been there before, right? This is not going to surprise him. He's going to come out and wrestle hard. And he had a good tournament in the section tournament. So again, Finn Solomon and Ty Waters are your top 2 here. I like Capusta as a pretty solid 3. I hate to sound like a broken record, but is Donald that 4th, right? Is he the guy coming out here? Because you look at the matchups here, Chad Jesko, Ethan Connor, first round matchup. I like that matchup. I think it's a good first round matchup to see one potentially that can knock off that 4th. But outside of that, right, I don't see a Nate Jones. Yeah, he won a section, but Section 4 was not deep at all at 145 pounds. I can't see him knocking off anyone in the top 4 here. So Burford, Connor, Jesko, I think they're all in the mix, but Donald may be that steady horse here. I think Donald has been pretty consistent. We got to see him up at our tournament, the Surge, and I thought he looked good there. And most of his losses are to guys that are highly ranked. So he's coming in with some pretty good experience on this season.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the last couple of weights, where it's hard to say who that number 4 guy is going to be. I think this one is a little more clear than the last couple of weights. 152, it seems like they're pretty clear as well. Your Section 1 champion was Danny Turner from Indiana, had a 5-1 win over Mark Gray of Kiski, the impressive freshman for the Cavaliers. Jack Pletcher of Latrobe, he wins the section championship at 152 over Ethan Ansel of Connellsville 4-3. Kellen Laffey of Pine Richland, a 7-1 winner over Nico Taddy of West Allegheny, and Dylan Evans of Chartiers Valley, your Section 4 champion. Obviously, we don't have Chase Kranitz in this weight. He bumps up from 52 to 60, which clears the way we talked about all season, how there's 5 studs and only 4 to be able to go on to 152 to the state tournament. Kellen Laffey, the number 1 seed, thanks to his win over Dylan Evans of Chartiers Valley at the Allegheny County Tournament. Evans is number 2. Nico Taddy of West Allegheny, number 3. Jack Pletcher of Latrobe, number 4. Can you argue who this top 4 will be, Jeff? I think it's pretty clear here at 152.
Yeah, again, I mean, I'll joke with the WPIAL committee because their jobs were pretty easy. In my opinion, it was a pretty easy bracket to seed. There was not a whole lot of controversy. The seeding meeting shouldn't have taken too long because a lot of these guys have met head to head. A lot of these guys have quality wins, and some of these guys just don't. Some of the sections are just a lot deeper than others. So you're right. I think 152 went exactly as we expected. We have the head to head between Laffey and Evans. We saw what they both did at the Powerade tournament with Laffey coming out for third. You look at Taddy. Taddy has a win over Pletcher at the Powerade tournament. I don't see any issues with that at all. The question I had coming into this was, how was Kellen Laffey going to be? Because he had a month off, right? The last time we saw him was, I think, January 24th. And, fast forward a month to the 26th of February, that was the next time we saw him. So that was a big question for me, is where he was going to be at health-wise. And wrestling a very, very dangerous and tough Nico Taddy 7-1, I think that showed he's in pretty good shape. So I expect to see this happen again. This is a 1-2 in the state. I'd love to see this happen again. But the question is, for me, is can Jack Pletcher finally knock through and make it to the state tournament? Because he has yet to do that just yet. He's been close, and at times he's looked really, really good. But other times, he's struggled a little bit. So he's on the top half with Laffey, but you have Danny Turner up there as well. I like where he's at. I think he makes it to the semifinals without too much of an issue. I look at a guy like Ben Cedar as potentially a guy who could make it to the quarterfinals as well. Taddy, I think, has a pretty clear shot to the semifinals as well. I don't see Mark Gray giving him too many issues, but Gray is a pretty stout freshman from Kiski. Ethan Ansell on the bottom half as well. He has a tough first-round matchup with Michael Kinsey from Armstrong. So, again, the top four are pretty solid, I no doubt, but Taddy has a pretty convincing win over Pletcher. So I'd say the top three are really solid. And then Pletcher, man, if the Jack that we saw showed up at the sectional tournament shows up again in the WPIAL tournament, he should make it out. But he's got to win those close matches, because we saw it in Hershey at the team state tournament. He was losing 1-point matches. He's got to find a way to win those tight matches, because there will be some here at Canon-Mac.
160 pounds, your champ was from Section 1, Enzo Morlacchi of Kiski. Section 2, Jared Kessler of Connellsville. He had a 5-2 win over Chase Kranitz of Norwin. Section 3 was Sean Taylor of West Allegheny. Section 4, Bodie Morgan of Trinity, a 3-1 winner over Chris Beatty of Chartiers Valley. So your top four, again, seems like it's pretty clear. Jared Kessler, Connellsville, sitting at the top. You have Sean Taylor of West Allegheny, number 2. Enzo Morlacchi of Kiski, number 3. Chase Kranitz of Norwin, number 4. Solid number 4. You can make an argument for Bodie Morgan of Trinity, but still coming off that knee injury that he's battled all season. Only wrestled 8 matches all year. Yeah, it's hard to argue this top 4 at 160.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can put it any other way based on the head-to-head results this year thus far. I don't see it any other way. Jared Kessler looks like a man on a mission. He looks like a guy who's poised for a state championship run. We've seen him in Hershey previously come up short, finishing 4th. I think he is poised and ready to go. He's had a few losses this year, right? He took 3 losses early on. One of those, coming to Enzo Morlacchi from Kiski, who he avenged that loss to. And Enzo looked really good in the section tournament. And you said about Bodie Morgan, winning Section 4. Bodie Morgan is clearly getting better as the season progresses on. But he lost to Gavin Beck from Franklin Regional. Some of his losses were Gavin Beck and Chase Kranitz. Beck finishes 3rd in Section 1, and Stoll beat Beck. So I don't see how you can put Bodie Morgan anywhere else than where he's at. Give him a chance to have a rematch with Chase Kranitz. He lost to him a few weeks ago. Gavin Beck also on the top side. Adam Rohan from North Allegheny, him should have a good match there. But I think Kessler's is the clear guy here. With Taylor, man, Sean Taylor is he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun, and we had him on the show, and he's he's really broken out in his sophomore campaign. You know, this year so far, he's just come out and knocked off some big names after last year finishing third in the section. He's really done well. He lost to Jared Kessler early on, but then of course beats Malachi 3-1, and he's right in the mix with some guys like Holden Garcia as well. So I'm excited to see if Taylor can push it to the finals. But I think Jared Kessler is the guy here. He's a man on a mission.
172 pounds. Your Section 1 champ was Connor Jacobs of Armstrong. Your Section 2 champ, Logan Hoffman of Bell Vernon. Section 3, Christian Scheller of Mars. And Section 4, Rocco Welsh of Waynesburg. He wins by major decision over Matthew Furman of Canon-McMillan. Welsh, number 1. Furman, number 2. Logan Hoffman, number 3 from Bell Vernon. Christian Scheller of Mars, number 4. Obviously, I like the fact, obviously, you have Welsh and Furman on opposite ends of the bracket. But outside of that, I mean, not a lot of surprises here either.
No, not very many surprises at all. You know, Christian Scheller, unfortunately, you know, doesn't get to see a whole lot of competition. He was a little banged up a little bit, but him and Logan Hoffman both have wins over Connor Jacobs from Armstrong. Scheller beat him 9-2. Hoffman beat him 3-0. So you could make an argument that Scheller could be ahead of Hoffman, but I think you clearly have to separate Furman and Welsh. There's no doubt, because of Furman's 7 losses, I believe 3 of them are to Rocco. I could be wrong, but I believe at least 3 of them are to Rocco. So Furman's got to be on that bottom half. I like where he's at. I think he makes it to the semifinals without much of an issue. Alan Wolf, Evan Letke from North Hills, both down there. But I don't see him having much issue getting to the semifinals. I do believe that Hoffman should make it to the semifinals as well. Sam Snyder from Latrobe is there, and Manuel Santos from Seneca Valley. But I think Hoffman is the guy to make it out to the semifinals, with Furman coming out from that. Scheller's the guy who I want to see compete against some of these top guys. I want to see him go against Connor Jacobs again, and I want to see him against Rocco Welsh. He wrestled him before, and he wrestled him at Powerade, and you know, Welsh did what Welsh does, and that's score a lot of points. But you know, Scheller, I think, has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. So these top 4 here, I think, are pretty solid. But I think a guy like Connor Jacobs, maybe Alan Wolf, can try to break through. But outside of the top 4, I really don't know if there's going to be much wiggle room, because you know, with Furman and Welsh being, I think, the clear top 2, the next 2 are kind of up for debate, and I think Hoffman and Scheller are those guys.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you 100%. 172 is not especially deep once you get past those, obviously, Welsh and Furman to get into that mix. Hoffman, I think, is right there. I think he and Furman will be a good match in the semifinals. And, yeah, I mean, the way Scheller's wrestling right now, I think, you know, he seems like the number 4 guy. 189 pounds. Giuliano Marion of Franklin Regional, your champ in Section 1. George Schultz of Connellsville, your champ in Section 2. Matt Serwaka of North Hills, your champ in Section 3. And Max Stout of Mount Lebanon, your champ in Section 4. Your top seeds, Max Stout of Mount Lebanon, number 1. Giuliano Marion of Franklin Regional, number 2. Brody Evans of Waynesburg, number 3. Owen Ott of Penn Trafford, your number 4. Thoughts on 189?
Yeah, 189 is weird. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear 189 here. It's just a weird weight class, because you had some guys vacate the weight, and you have a guy like Matt Swerka from North Hills, who I remember he was a 106 pounder. It seems like not that long ago. I'm pretty sure as a freshman he was 106. Last year he was undefeated 4-0 before having an injury that ended his season. In fact, he had a win over Christian Scheller in that season last year. This year he's 12-3. So, you know, he lost to Cooper Baxter early in the season 4-0. Then we hadn't seen him for, I think, like 2 months. He's battled injuries. I'm not sure what exactly the injury is, but he's battled them. So he's one I have a lot of questions about. Giuliano Marion from Franklin Regional is another guy, 30-5 on the year as a sophomore. he's just been a really consistent wrestler for Matt Leby and Franklin Regional. I've got to see him on a few occasions. I really like that Stafford and Marion matchup. I think it's a good test for Stafford to see where he's at health-wise. He was out of the lineup for a little bit. Brody Evans, another guy who's just really been a solid wrestler for Waynesburg this year where they needed somebody to step up. Brody Evans has been that guy to step it up. Max Stout is maxed out. There's no one that's going to touch Max Stout. Not until the state tournament, and probably not until the finals against Sonny Sasso. There's no one that's going to touch Max Stout. So I think that's probably why you saw a lot of people vacate. George Schultz is another one that I really like, and I've seen him on quite a few occasions. And man, those Connellsville guys are just battle tested. Much like the Latrobe folks, they've been in a lot of tough tournaments. They've been deep into the team tournament. The questions I have are, how healthy is guys like Matt Swertka from North Hills and Gabe Stafford from Canon-Mac? If those two are healthy and they have their lungs, I think either one of them can kind of push the pace with guys like Owen Ott, Brody Evans, and Juliana Morano. But outside of that, I don't know if there's a whole lot of wiggle room. Jay Conroy is a guy who I was really high on early in the year, dropped to 4th in Section 4, which was a deep section, no doubt. But by falling there, he has a tough first-round matchup with Jaden Resch of Hampton, and he could potentially see the loser of Schultz and Ott. So, it's I wouldn't call it depth, but they have some pretty sporadic talent here at 189. You have maxed out here, right? And then a group of like 3 or 4 that are down here trying to vie for that spot here. So 189 outside of 3 through 6, it should be a lot of fun to see where they end up.
I agree with you completely. This is the most wide open weight class outside of your champion in maxed out. Everyone else, like you just mentioned, I mean, any one of those names from Conroy to Schultz to Ott to Evans to Sorwaka to Stafford to Marion, I mean, my goodness, there's so many good wrestlers, or so many quality guys that could come in here and beat 2, 3, and 4. I like Brody Evans getting into that mix and claiming one of those spots. I think he's just had a great year, medaling at Powerade. Just kind of being that guy who's been super competitive and had a great season for Waynesburg. Same with Marion. I like him a lot. So it's going to be tough, I feel like, to knock one of those two guys off. And that 4th one, to me, is just really up there as far as who gets it. So it'll be interesting for sure to see who comes out 2, 3, and 4.
There's a lot of these guys who have battled each other throughout the season, too. I mean, we look at Brody Evans and look at some of the guys he's wrestled. He beat George Schultz 3-1 in overtime. He beat Stafford 4-2 in sudden victory early in the season, and then, of course, beat him this past weekend or a few weeks back. He beat George Schultz again. He lost to Jack Conroy, I think it was by fall. He lost him by fall and then avenged that loss by pinning him in the section tournament. So, yeah, I mean, he's been steady. I would say Marion has been pretty consistent throughout the season as well. He wrestled pretty tough up at the King of the Mountain tournament. And, I like you said, there's going to be a lot of fireworks here. Outside of that number 1 spot, there's going to be a lot of fireworks.
215 pounds, Corbin Johnson of Armstrong, your champion, beats Carter Diltz of Kiski 4-3 in the final. Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson, your champion out of Section 2, defeats Cole Waitman of Belle Vernon 2-1 in the final. Liam Volklaus of Seneca Valley, your champion, beat Aiden Buggy of North Allegheny 7-5 in the final. And Josh Sarasnik of Chartiers Valley, your champion, Section 4, beats Eli Makel of Waynesburg 7-3. So we talk about 189 being wide open. 215 is wide open from top to bottom, and it is an extremely deep weight class. Corey Borio of Latrobe finishes as the 3rd place finisher out of Section 2, but still gets the 3rd seed because Finnerty and Waitman, I think they definitely are in a collision course to meet again for the WPIAL title. But 3 and 4, I mean, it's open. I mean, this is going to be a fun weight class.
So I said how 189 gave me anxiety. 215 is bananas. 215 is crazy. And obviously we look at the sections and we say, how the heck did, you look at Section 2 and how deep that is. It's unreal how deep that is. Section 2 had some guys that all four I think can make a push to the state tournament. Now you look at Josh Sarasnik from Chartiers Valley, again up and down. We've seen him win some big matches, and then he lost some that you're just surprised that he lost them. He got teched by Aiden Rowe from Council Rock North at Powerade. He lost 12-0 to Eli Makel earlier this year. 12-0, 3 points away from a tech fall. Then he comes back and beats Makel 7-3 just this past weekend. Has a big win over Vitaly Daniels twice. He's beat him twice this year. He has some good results, but he lost to Aiden Buggy from North Allegheny earlier this year as well. And we saw what Buggy did in the section final. So I don't know what to expect. Volt Klaus is the enigma here for me. Volt Klaus has been, only 18 matches. And those 18 matches up until a section tournament, he hasn't really been pushed too much. But Sarasnik and Volt Klaus, should they meet in the semifinals, I think is a phenomenal matchup with a chance for a date with Brian Finnerty. But that top half is stacked. You got Finnerty, Chismar, and Buggy all in the same quadrant. Then you have Sarasnik, Philip Nave, and Volt Klaus all in that bottom half of the top bracket. So those are all guys that I'm not going to want to see a Buggy or a Sarasnik early on in the tournament. There's just no doubt. And then you go to the bottom half and you say, Corey Borio, he finished third in the section. How can that be? And then you have Eli Makel, Carter Diltz also down there. Dennis Nicholson is a guy who's been on fire recently, man. Dennis Nicholson is came out of nowhere this year for me. I'm not saying he's going to beat Cole Waitman, but I really do believe that Dennis Nicholson is going to push the pace with all these guys. Waitman pinned him in the semifinals, but he gave Borio all he could handle. Borio beat him 3-2. So he's right there. But ultimately, the question is, who's going to come out on top? Finnerty, Waitman, Borio, Volt Klaus. Because I think you throw them in a bag and you shake them up, I think they all can win on any given day.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Finnerty Waitman rematch. I think it's going to be something to see as far as that goes. Corey Borio has been, just steady all season long. And before Waitman came back, because obviously he hasn't wrestled much, right? Only 7 matches all season. Finnerty, before he came from 189 to 215, it seemed like it was Corey Borio's weight here at this 215 pounds. So to me, I'd like, as deep it is, as you talked about it, who's going to come out, 3, 4, because I think Finnerty and Waitman take 2 of the spots. Borio, I think, ends up getting a 3rd. So who comes out of that 4th one? Volt Klaus, to me, like you said, he's the one that you just don't know at this point. How good is he, right now as far as this season goes, because he hasn't been tested. Eli Makel, honestly, he just got thrown on his back. And he tried to roll Sarasnik through, wasn't able to do it, gave up a 5-point move, and I think he lost the match 7-3. Just it was tough to come back from at that point after being thrown on his back. So Eli Makel's been steady all season long. Can he be that 4th guy? It's going to be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of question marks here. Cole Waitman's a question mark. I wasn't convinced he was going to come back. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it back. And his last 2 state tournaments, he's defaulted out of them. He made it to the semifinals as a sophomore, defaulted out to 6th. He went to the state tournament last year and defaulted to 8th. So if he's healthy and if he wrestles, he's going to be a problem, as we saw this past weekend. But he's got to be healthy. He's got to have his lungs back.
Well, one guy that he had trouble with was Brian Finnerty, and he's going to be our guest on the show today. We'll see if we can get him on the phone as we get Brian to join us here momentarily. Brian, thanks for joining us on the show.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
Good.
Well, Brian, first and foremost, congratulations on your section title. We were just talking about one of the deepest sections, especially at 215, your weight class. Before we talk a little bit about that, we just want to first talk a little about your decision. You were at 189 for the beginning of the season before deciding to go ahead and move up. What went all into that decision for you?
just really my coaches and my parents. We were talking about it, and I mean, Stout's a good wrestler, no doubt about it. He would just be the character to beat, and I mean, I feel like I have a better shot at 215 at getting that WPIAL title, or even just making it onto the next tournament and keep seeing where I can go with it.
And you made that big move to at the Allegheny County tournament, where we were at, bringing that to you. Is that kind of the tournament where you're like, hey, I want to test the waters here at 215, see how I feel against top competition, and see if this is the right move for me?
Yeah, I felt like at the county tournament, that was probably the best testing field to really fill out the waters at 215. I mean, Buggy's a good wrestler, no doubt about it, but I felt like I got my feel of 215, and I think that's where I wanted to be.
We'll talk about your past weekend. You wrestled, the top two guys here, the 2 and 3 seeds to win your section title. You defeated Corey Borio of Latrobe in the semis, and then the big matchup with Cole Waitman and Bell Vernon in the finals. Talk a little bit about each of those matches and what went right for you.
So in the semis against Borio, I didn't know what to expect because I knew he was definitely planning on trying something new, or they had strategy against me, because I know the Latrobe coaches were trying to get that edge over me. And that's what me and my coach has been training, is to trying to keep that edge away from everyone else of trying to get above me. And I mean, he had a nice shot in the third period and took me down with like 4 seconds left and went into overtime. And I always feel pretty strong in overtime on just conditioning and stuff, and ended up getting a reversal at the end and getting 2.
And then what about your match against Cole Waitman in that final?
Yeah, Cole Waitman, that was a little bit of anxiety going into that match. I didn't know how it was going to be, him coming back. I mean, I think I saw his record before. It was just falls. And I know, and I heard just from people talking about him, he's just a strong dude. And I was just, first period, just trying to feel him out, seeing what I can get. And I realized that dude is strong upper body. He is just something else. And then second, he got a good escape. He's just fast off bottom. Tried to get a shot or something. He shot in, I rolled him over. Almost got 2 in the end of the second. Nothing there. And then with 33 seconds left in the third, I ended up getting out and reversing him and riding him out. So it was an interesting match.
Yeah.
A lot of emotions from the crowd too.
It sounded like it from what I heard. The crowd was getting into it. They knew that was kind of the match that everyone wanted to see and watch. I noticed watching you over the years that when you're on the mat, you don't seem to get you don't get too flustered. You look like you're just out there, just handling business. You could just be a guy walking down the street, but here you are, in an absolute war with somebody. What goes through your mind during those types of moments? And, are you really as calm as your face would project?
I feel like I'm pretty calm throughout the matches. I mean, right before I get a little anxious, I mean, who doesn't get a little anxious before going on? And then just with Mija, my assistant coach, and Laddick just talking me through before the matches, just reminded me that I'm meant to be there, and why not me? As we always say, why not me? And it's my shot. So I just feel pretty calm throughout the matches, and I mean, we work with everything in the room just to improve in all situations. Even when I'm on my back, we improve from there. Just any situation we're working through.
You've had such a solid last 3 years. You won 31 matches as a sophomore, 30 matches last year as a junior. Now you have 36 wins as a senior. Last year you were down at 172, and you had one of the more impressive wins of the postseason. I thought you beat Tucker Hogan 3-2, but then you fell to Lance Urbis and then Tate Nichter. How much of a sour taste did that leave in your mouth? Because I think you probably were expecting and planning on being in Hershey on the top 8. Did that motivate you to put in some extra work in the off season, or were you satisfied with how you wrestled? You just needed to clean a few things up.
So what me and my coach talked about, Coach Laddick, I say it was probably the best thing ever to happen to me was losing there, and it really, I think, really changed my performance. Yeah, last year was a rough year because messed up my knee towards around midwinter mayhem. I messed it up pretty badly, and then it was just trying to get through the season the rest of the way. And sadly, I got the stack side of the bracket on the super regionals. But I think that's what really fueled my fire, is just not being down, like just not being down on myself, and just motivating myself and just using why not me. I earned this. I need to earn this.
And obviously talking about how you've prepared, you talked about Coach Laddick a lot, and Micha as well. But how much does you're wearing your Quest shirt? I can see that. How much has that played a role into you? I know you're always putting in extra workouts there, and Coach Akerley and Coach Waldko and those guys. How much has that helped you develop, especially this season, moving up to 215 pounds?
With Quest, I mean, Akerley was actually one of the first people to ever bring it up to me about maybe wrestling 215. Because I was just sitting there after practice talking to him, and it was him and Ty Nauman, and they were like, you should check out the waters at 215. That might be a next spot for you. And I was like, it might be. I'll have to check it out. And then I made that decision. And then just there, I have such good practice partners. I mean, every day there's literally half the WPIAL's there in my weight. You got Maple, Buggy, sometimes Saraznik's there. Just all of them are there, and I mean, I get to practice with Haroon Lawrence, maxed out. It's just great partners in different styles, which helps me adapt in the matches and be calm through it. And
you committed to Kent State. So what was that decision like for you, especially coming off of a COVID year where, it was a hard year for juniors to be in. And you found a home in Kent State. What was that decision like for you, and how difficult was it, especially during COVID?
It was pretty difficult because it was hard to get coaches to look at me. And then I think after Super 32, more coaches looked at me, and then they started. It was just really hard to find a place that was really home for me. And then I don't like to pay a lot for stuff, so it was trying to find the best scholarship and best place, best coaching staff where I like to be. I'm not in a dungeon in a cinder block room, so I have to feel like Kent was a good move for me.
You and I have something in common, Brian. We don't like to pay for a whole lot of. You're like me, frugal. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest spender in my times. I like to spend a lot of my money.
Well, your parents must think that's pretty good then. If you're not worried about going out and spending money on frivolous things, so your parents must sleep a little bit better at night knowing that.
Yeah, they like that I don't spend that much money, but they also sometimes say you gotta spend your money sometimes.
That's true. Can't take it with you.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, congratulations on winning a section championship. Obviously going into this weekend, a deep weight class at 215. You talked about some of the anxiety that you had going up against guys like Borio and Waitman. Do you feel like now that you've wrestled each of them, you're kind of have that pressure off a little bit and just kind of be able to wrestle your own match and not have that anxiety coming up this weekend?
Yeah, I feel like I don't have that pressure on me anymore. Now that I'm the number one in the WPIAL, I have a little bit more pressure of oh, you can't lose now. But it's really just me just calm myself down before match and just realizing I'm here and why not me, and just keep wrestling through every situation.
Right. Absolutely. Well, best of luck as you head into the WPIALs this weekend, and we look forward to seeing how things finish up for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson, kind enough to join us on the show. And 285 pounds. Jeff, your champion in Section 1 was Stone Joseph of Kiski area. In Section 2, your champion was Billy McChesney of Greensburg-Salem. Section 3 was Joey Schneck of Pine Richland, and Section 4 was Noah Tustin of Waynesburg with a 9-4 decision over Ty Banco of Trinity. You look at the 285 in WPIAL, Billy McChesney, the top guy, Noah Tustin 2, Ty Banco 3. We'll probably see that one more time. We've seen it plenty of times this season. And Joseph Schneck of Pine Richland, number 4, with Stone Joseph right there at number 5. Should be even 285. It's got a number of solid wrestlers here in this one.
So 6 times previously, Tustin and Banco have wrestled. Banco has won 4 of those. Tustin has won 2. The big thing is Tustin won that last one that kind of propelled him to where he's at in the bracket. But these guys can go back and forth. I would not be surprised to see this just flip back to Banco winning. So you look at 285 and you say, obviously Billy McChesney is the guy here, right? He's undefeated, is one of only, I think, 5 in the WPIAL and AAA that are undefeated still in the season. Returning state medalist, has been as high as number 1 in the state. So clearly McChesney is the guy. But you look at Ty Banco and Noah Tustin, I'm impressed with both of them. I thought Noah Tustin, despite having 12 losses on the season, my gosh, the guy's wrestled in every big tournament. He's medaled, I think, in almost every big tournament, including Powerade, Beast of the East, Ironman. So those losses aren't just some, cupcake schedule type losses. I mean, the guy is being battle tested. For me, Banco, Tustin, round 7, whoever wins that is likely going to be 3rd. I don't see much, threat to them outside the top 3. Stone Joseph, I was happy to see him back on the mat and wrestling. I know he's had a ton of adversity, not only this season, but his whole career, to be honest with you. I can remember when he was a freshman wrestling, heavyweights like Gio Ramos from Canon-McMillan, and man, he's been at it for a while, but he got together for the section tournament to win a section title there, and I think he's on a good side. He's got Joey Schmeck there at the 4th spot, 4th seed. I think that's a winnable match for him. But when it comes to heavyweight, there's so much unknown. There's so much that can happen. I really don't know what to expect outside of those top 3, because Schmeck, while I think he's had a good season, I think he's not a shoe-in for that 4th spot like we've seen in other weights. Sean Loring has been good in his career. Stone Joseph, as we mentioned, has been pretty solid. He has a lot of experience. And of course, you look at that bottom half and you say, okay, can Jacob Pocata, can he come back and get back on the right path after losing to Schmeck? So again, heavyweight, a lot of question marks here, but outside those top 3, I don't see anyone, messing with those top 3.
Yeah, McChesney definitely, I think, has that clear shot to win it, and Banco Tustin is the toss-up match. But no, I agree with your assessment there of the top 3, and the 4th one is up for grabs. I mean, we've seen Sean Loring have some great tournaments. Jake Palmacata of Butler have some good tournaments. Joey Enoch of Penn Trafford, tough wrestler as well. Joey Schneck, you mentioned Pine Richland, had a great Allegheny County tournament. He's been on the right path, but going to Stone Joseph, being a senior, has been through some injuries. I think it's just a matter of how healthy is Stone Joseph. If he is healthy, or even 95%, I think he's your guy, your number 4 place winner here, because he's been there. He's a battle tested guy. So I like him a lot there in that 4th spot.
Yeah, and I obviously we don't like to root for guys, and we don't like to we try to be as unbiased as possible, but I wouldn't be upset to see a guy like Stone Joseph make it through, because I just knowing him personally and knowing all the things that he's been through, it would just be a good ending to his career. But it ain't gonna be easy, right? Like you said, Schneck he had a good county tournament. Obviously looked really good in the section tournament. Joe Ank is a guy who certainly is in that mix as well. So it's, again, those 3 are very locked in, but that fourth spot, it's certainly up for grabs if Stone Joseph is healthy and his endurance is there. I think he may be the guy I'd bet on here.
Absolutely. For AAA with wrestling action starting on Friday with the kicking off at 5 o'clock for the opening round matches. And then Saturday, things pick back up at 10 a.m. With wrestling action, the consolations, and then getting into the semifinals with the finals set for, I believe it's 4 o'clock for AAA coming up on Saturday. AA on the other side, wrestling kicks off at 4:30 at Peters Township, with quarterfinals set for 8:30 on Friday. Saturday, wrestling gets back underway at 9 a.m. Semifinals at 12:30, with the finals and the medal matches kicking off at 5:15. So that's the wrestling action coming up this weekend, Jeff, and it gets down to the nit and gritty, right, as far as getting ready for the PIAA tournament. But the best time of the year right now, these next 2 weekends.
I mean, there's no better time of the year. It's the best time of the year, and we already know who 4 of those wrestlers are occupying the brackets in AAA with South Central Regional, and after Saturday, we're going to have the complete look at it. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what Peters Township is like for the AA tournament. I was there for the team tournament, and I thought it was a great facility, great location. It's obviously huge being new, and I'm excited to have the Classic there as well, the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. So, and of course, we're going to Canon-McMillan for AAA, where, I mean, how many times has it been at Canon-McMillan? I feel like it's always at Canon-McMillan, so we know what to expect there. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. This is one of my favorite weekends of the year, no doubt, because this is where you see a lot of guys do what we expect, but a lot of folks that kind of surprise you and come up with a big performance. So I can think back just in recent memory, just some big time performances at the regional tournament that carried over to the state tournament. So yeah, it's a fun weekend.
And we'll be here to recap it all for you next Monday. We'll be recapping these 2 tournaments, and then we'll be previewing the state tournament as well. So I would suggest, what do you think, Jeff? Make sure everybody gets their popcorn and their drinks ready, because that's going to be a long show. It's always a long show.
It always is, man. Maybe we need to break it up into 2 shows, a AA show and a AAA show. I don't know, because I get tired. I'm not as young as I used to be, Greg, and maybe we need to break it up into two different shows. I don't know. But does that mean I have to pay you more? Because I'm like Brian Finnerty. I don't like paying. I don't like spending money on things. So maybe I'll just do one by myself. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you talk enough anyway. So I mean, wait,
wow,
as well.
Really? Do I? My wife tells me that all the time. Now, when it comes to wrestling, I like to talk, no doubt. I'm like my dad. I certainly inherited that from my father. I was with him this past weekend at South Central Regional, and oh, I just talked to your dad. Oh, I just talked to your dad. Every when I see, it's like, my God, he's like just going around saying hello to everybody, I guess, so I guess that's where I get it from.
That's right. That's the you guys are the mayors of wrestling, right?
I don't know about that.
You guys know it all.
I certainly don't know it
all the information. You guys.
I don't know about that, Greg.
We'll leave it at that.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thanks to Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson for joining us on the show. And for Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening and watching into WarUp on the WPIAL.